if you're in a leadership role in a firearms related company and you're not in politics, you won't be in a leadership role for long. Our industry has been under very tight scrutiny for, my gosh, since 68, 69, to change and modify and genuflect, to bend a knee to what would be called progressive thoughts and policies. And someone at the NRA explained this to me quite well. He said, look, we have, from the time the Constitution was enacted to today, we are finding ourselves already in the middle. There is no more half measures or moving toward a new standard of firearm ownership. You have to be involved in politics at some level, be it state or federal, with your representatives, to help influence what's coming around. I can tell you this, being in this role for, my God, 30 years now, it's gotten tougher to continue to fight for just trying to pinpoint where the battle's going to come next, from credit card transactions, debanking, higher regulatory risk for insurance companies, the core things. PayPal. We can't have social media aspects out there. So we're talking about firearms. That's all shifted to a political agenda to shut down the voice of Second Amendment or firearm ownership across America, which there's a vast majority of gun owner population of people who could own a gun, own a firearm. And yet that needs to be clamped down through some of the, I would call them coastal companies that are trying to set an agenda, where the vast majority of Americans do not really abide by that. But in the industry, we've got to care about that. Otherwise, it just goes away. So you've got to be a leader inside your company and in your state, at least, if you're a firearm related company.
What would you say to a company that is in the Second Amendment space but seems to be pushing against some of the pro 2A agenda?
There's a couple of examples of that, modern ones. Pushing against the agenda. There is no stronger motivation than your customers telling you what's right or wrong as a company. If you're pushing against an agenda, be it suppressors, for example, right now, your customers will tell you by where they spend their dollars. And it's usually the ones that there was, like Illinois had a gun registry that was thankfully stopped. Customers will tell you whether they appreciate your political efforts or not. And when I look at what we're doing with politics for our organization, I always assume, and it should be this way, that everything I do, everything our company stands for, should be public. There's no back rooms, smoky deals. That's just not how our culture is and how most companies are. And everything you do out there has to be for the betterment of the personal ownership of firearms. And when a company steps up against it or can't explain their position because they want to hide it for their own personal gain, they're just going to be punished by their customers. And that's what happens. So if you go down that path, you're not boldly stating where you're going and why. And if that doesn't align with your customers' values, you'll know pretty quick, and your company will find itself facing a PR nightmare. So.
Yeah. And I love what you said about being involved at the state level. This year, we were able to secure what I hope to be the first victory of many with the state of Tennessee adopting PLACA, which is a protection for companies where they can't be sued if someone does something stupid with their product, which right. We would never think of suing Ford because someone got into an auto accident. When we look at movements like this and constitutional carry now well over 50% of the U.S., how vital do you feel the state level politics is for companies?
I think that, it's critical that we're a United States. We're a republic of states and states' rights. So the 10th Amendment ebbs and flows on its power, based over a couple of decades. It'll have more strength than it does right now. So the Tennessee language, the Georgia language, I would encourage every state representative in every state association to start to look at that and provide a plaque of protection in your state. So that starts to build jurisdictional growth. It's concealed carry did not exist in the 80s. And then Marion Hammer down in Florida started this little cause down there that has now grown to be not just concealed carry on almost every state, but also this constitutionary concept that we're now enjoying as a country. So these things start small. When we see a movement that is making it difficult to be a firearm ownership, we'll find some states or some jurisdictions where we can start to get a foothold on a defense of our individual rights to own a firearm. If companies and PLACA, so if companies get sued for stupid mistakes or illegal problems that an individual uses, and we're held responsible for that, that starts to put that not just the lawsuits, but the added cost for every gun manufacturer gets passed on to the gun owners through increased insurance, debanking. There's other regulatory credit card processing. All that stuff starts to add risk to the general systems and procedures you need to run a business. Protecting, just natural protection that every other product has for illegal use or misuse. Every other company else has that just in general law, and all PLACA does is make sure that it's well understood inside the firearms industry. And that's a very important part to have. So I would encourage every state to step up in there. There's a second group out there that I think we kind of take it, we don't take advantage of, and that's the attorneys general. They're setting policy for the state, and they're saying this is illegal in our state, and we can push back on other states that are restricting trade or causing areas of constraining trade or ownership of firearms for their citizens in their state. So the Republican Party has RAGA, which is the Republican Attorney General's Association. That's another great one to kind of tap into their knowledge base and see what makes sense in your state and how can they guide you as a company or an individual. Your Attorney General is either going to be your worst nightmare if you're in New York or your best friend if you're in like Iowa, Republican state.
So recently we've seen, and as the filming of this is where we're currently at, we saw the HPA get passed through Congress. It's going to the Senate. What is your feeling about the HPA? I know that you guys signed on to the letter to support it, but what is your feeling about the HPA? And do you think that we will be able to push that to get protection for pistol braces through the SHORT Act as well?
So HPA and SHORT Act, the pistol braces. Pistol braces right now are they're back in to a large degree. So, and then the SHORT Act is to get the short action barrel or short action rifles removed from the NFA list. So suppressor, short barreled actions or short barreled rifles, those two initiatives. I think HPA is doing a good job. It's in the House bill right now. It's been sent over to the Senate for review next week. And I think there's some good language in that HPA that says remove suppressors. Silencers is a legal term. It's in the HPA. Remove suppressors from NFA. If you don't, it's still going to reduce the tax to zero. I'd prefer it's off, so remove that onerous problem of going through the background check, which is just like the background check for a firearm. I think that's a good movement. There's some good insights to make that germane or stay in the reconciliation bill. So that's a good movement. Getting the SHORT Act into the reconciliation, that feels like a tougher lift for a lot of Republicans out there. And if it's in the reconciliation, you need a lot of Republicans to line up and I don't still think they have the backbone for that, which is unfortunate. But they do have the support for the removing suppressors. Suppressors are a hearing protection, as well as, they're universally accepted as the right thing to do around the world. If you're out there hunting and shooting, the respectful thing is to protect and lower the decibels of every shooting range. That one has a lot of lift, and they can go and and talk to all of their constituents, they being Republicans, and go talk to their constituents back home and say, yep, I supported that. Everybody recoils when it comes to, not everybody, a lot of people recoil on the Republican side of the Senate and the House when it comes to removing short-barreled rifles from the NFA. We'll get there someday. That's how I look at it. You got to continue to plant that flag, build a beachhead of support, and there'll be a time. This is a good time still to push it with this House and Senate. I'm just not sure it's going to make reconciliation right now.
Now, under the assumption, because we, again, like you said, it's got to go to the Senate. We're pre-filming this under the assumption that the HPA does pass and suppressors are removed from the NFA. What do you feel like that is going to do for the firearms industry?
Well, there's a clause on there. When is it enacted? It's currently got a 90-day period before it comes into effect. So if this is passed, let's just say it's June 1st for math. June 1st, we're really looking at September. So it'll be a 90-day period where before enactment, unless that's changed. But if we stick with the way it's written, I believe that during the summertime, there's going to be a real slowdown in suppressor sales. So people are going to save their $200 just by waiting 90 days. In that period, though, regardless of when it's enacted, there's going to be a lot of get your pistol and get your rifle suppressor ready. That's going to be a whole bunch of gunsmithing work and personalization work on threading barrels, getting longer barrels for your pistol so you can thread them or buy a threaded barrel. By the way, we have those. So there'll be a period of getting that stuff ready. There's also a movement to modify that 90-day waiting period down, or 90-day enactment period down to 0 days, so immediate. We'll see how the Senate responds to that. If that's changed, then it has to go back to the House to be confirmed and checked off and sent back. So if it's as is, I think there's going to be a pause in procurement of suppressors. But when the floodgates are open, I think we're going to see two things. There's going to be a scarcity of suppressors out there. There's a lot of people getting ready to produce them. They're just not producing them. But when that happens, if that happens, there'll be a rush to mass produce those, which will be a big spike. And then there'll be a tail where it just becomes normal. And that's when we're going to see some prices come down on suppressors. They're going to probably be somewhere in the 100 to 200 range once we get there, because there'll be a lot of mass production, a lot of use right now. There's 554 million guns out there in the United States. There's a lot of room for suppressors, and there should be. It's a great safety device.